evaluated is not specified or specification relies upon educational terms that are imprecise or ambiguous. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin nito? Nagkakaroon daw ng mga problema when it comes to evaluation kasi hindi specific kung ano ba ang ini-evaluate doon sa curriculum. So alam naman natin, ang nature ng curriculum talaga ay napakalawak. At by definition, based sa foundations no, na pinag-aralan natin, ang lawak-lawak ng scope ng curriculum. So ang spectrum nito, kung hindi natin bubusisiin, ano ba yung gusto nating bigyan ng diin sa ating i-evaluate, medyo doon nagiging detrimental to, nagkakaroon ng problem. Hello po, narinig po ako?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes po. So, two such terms that may lead to misinterpretation are curriculum and instruction. Kasi nga, di ba, kaya nga ang kurso natin, klaro yon. There should always be a curriculum, meron ding instruction. So, educators often use them interchangeably without recognition of any distinctions between the two or of the scope of activities falling within each category. So the lack of precision carries over to educational evaluation. So yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina. Ano po ba yung gusto nating i-evaluate kapag tayo ay nag-curriculum evaluation? Is it on the curriculum or is it on the instruction? Example, one evaluator may define his efforts as curriculum evaluation and proceed to evaluate the outputs of an instructional program. Another evaluator also evaluating the outputs of an instructional program may define his evaluating focus as instructional evaluation. So, yun po yung nagiging problema ngayon. Sa field po, kadalasan, kaya hindi na i-evaluate, like for instance, K-12 program. Ano po ba yung gusto nating i-evaluate specifically sa K-12 program? Yun po ba ay doon sa mga programa na nasa loob ng classroom? Approach po ba ang titignan natin? O yung pinaka-main umbrella, yung kabuuan ng programa? So, tignan po natin mamaya kung paano pumapasok yung micro and micro level. Okay, so next, curriculum evaluation is an evaluation of a set of intended learning outcomes. Kaya nga po, when we do our curriculum, especially, for example, in higher education, no, pag gumagawa ng syllabus, it is always cited, no, stipulated yung intended learning outcomes. Kasi dapat ano tayo doon, precise. So typical curriculum evaluation topics might be the appropriateness of the goals and objectives for the intended learners. So, tinitignan din natin anong level, ano ang sakop niya, anong degree. So, dapat yan klaro. Although, napakaklaro niyan, tinutulungan tayo ng CHED. Kaya ang CHED naglalabas talaga ng CHED memorandum na naglalagay ng lahat ng kung ano ba yung mga objectives at course learning outcomes na kinakailangan kasi nga standardized buong Pilipinas kapag ka, like for example sa mga general subjects no ng mga estudyante, yung Gen Ed. So makita mo talagang stipulated lahat isa-isa yon. So although ang mga universities katulad ng PNU ay maaaring maglagay, no, magdagdag nitong mga learning outcomes based sa kung ano ba yung VMGO ng university o ng eskwelahan. So VMGO meanings vision, mission, yung goals and objectives ng school na kailangan nahi-hit natin. At hindi natin dapat kalimutan yan when we do curriculum evaluation. Okay, so evaluation of instructional operation is an examination of the implementation of instructional plans. So, klaro po yon. When we evaluate instructional operation, ang ating ini-evaluate ay yung instructional plan. So, here the evaluator must consider whether or not strategies were carried out as designed or if there were deviations from planned strategies. He may want to examine the reason for such deviations and then examine the outcomes and consequences of the program. So siguro dito, napakahalaga nito na talagang na-take up natin yung curriculum planning and curriculum implementation because in that sense, malalaman natin ano ang tama doon sa proseso, alin ang mali sa proseso, alin ang nasunod, at ano ang dapat gawin kung hindi ito nasunod, o kung ano yung mga reasons kung bakit hindi nasunod. Kasi hindi madaling mag-evaluate kung hindi natin alam yung proseso, kung paano ito ginagawa at kung paano ito ini-implement, at ano yung mga roles ng mga ng mga tao na may kinalaman doon sa planning up to the implementation. So, na-take up po natin yan, ano? So, alam ko naman po na lahat tayo ay nagdaan doon sa kurso na yon. So, napakahalaga nun na alam natin yung operation kasi doon nagsimula yung process. Sino ang process owner nung programa? Sino yung mga, ano yung mga naging basis, no? Ng pagbuo ng plano, paano ito in-implement. So lahat yun, binubusisi po yun when it comes to evaluation of instructional operation. So to simplify, the evaluator's task in specifying the level of curriculum, instructional planning, or instructional operation with which he is concerned, we might consider a continuum of decision levels ranging from broad societal to teacher instructional decision levels. So, ibig sabihin, ano po ang ibig sabihin yan? Bigay ko po muna example. For example, a curriculum evaluation at a broad level might be an evaluation of educational goals for a state or a province-mandated curriculum. So, ibig sabihin nito, napakalawak nito. This is the broad one. So, kanina, sinasabi natin, binigay ko example, like for example, sa DepEd. Pagka nais nating i-evaluate yung, yun nga, nakakalungkot kasi sa totoo lang, parang sa palagay ko hanggang ngayon, hindi na-evaluate hanggang sa dumating itong pandemya. Hindi na-evaluate yung K-12 program natin. Makikita natin dito na ang tinitignan dito ngayon, pag gusto natin siyang evaluate, maaaring broad yung pangkalahatan, yung pinaka-curriculum per se. Pero maaari yan mas maliit na level. Kapag ang level ay nandoon na sa instruction, nasa loob na ng classroom. Like for example, best example is yung sa naaalala po ba ninyo yung pagbagsak natin? Tayo ang pinakamababa dun sa, ano po ba yung sabihin ko, PASI, no? Yung report, naalala nyo po ba? Hello po.
You mean, anong report? The PISA?
PISA, sorry, PASI. PISA. Sorry, yung PISA. Yung sa PISA po, kapag tinignan natin yan, very nasa instructional level siya. Bakit instructional level? Kasi ang tinignan na ay yung yung result ng exam ng mga bata without even evaluating muna ano ba yung mga programs natin in the program level ng curriculum ng DepEd. Okay. So, dapat po nakukonsider natin yon. Okay. So, an evaluator interested in instructional planning at a broader or macro level would be interested in examining the general instructional strategies designed by a state or provincial planners. Sa atin po, kaya po ginagamit yung state or provincial planner kasi ito ay US-based, kasi naka-state sila at saka naka-base sila sa mga provinces ng bawat estado nila. Siyempre, iba-iba ang context. So, dito, sa atin sa Pilipinas, since tayo, like for example, tayo sa CHED, sa higher ed, at sa DepEd naman, kung ano yung mga curriculum na yan. So, doon natin, yun yung tinatawag nating macro level, pangmalawakan. Such a strategy might be the design of new educational structures such as ungraded schools. So, hindi ito bababa doon sa mas maliliit. Hindi pa ito mapupunta, hindi natin pag-uusapan ang sistema pagdating sa mas maliliit na institusyon ng departamento. Hindi ito bababa sa mga schools kasi ang tinitignan natin ay yung nanggaling mismo na crafted doon sa pinaka departamentong may hawak ng education natin, sector. Like yun nga, CHED and DepEd. Okay, so next po ay at a less broad, or micro level, ito yung micro level, the evaluator might want to evaluate a specific teacher's instructional plan for achieving the objectives of a course. So, ibig sabihin, dito na tayo. Kung sa implementation, ito na yung mga implementers in the classroom eh. Paano nila ini-implement yung plano na yung plano kanina, tinitignan natin siya as a macro level. So yung micro, when it comes to in full detail na, sa mas mababa, which is on the implementation of the curriculum. Pumapasok doon yung instruction ngayon. So, dapat klaro po sa atin kung nasa ng macro at kung nasa ng micro level. So, dito sa explanation ko, ang binibigyan ko po ng emphasis dito, na when it comes to planning, yung curriculum per se, yung content, yung programs, macro yan. Pero when it comes to the instruction na, papasok na dito yung hidden curriculum, this is part of the micro level evaluation. Okay, so evaluation of macro or micro-instructional operations would involve a consideration of instructional activities as they are actually implemented at the appropriate level. For instance, the activities of a school, superintendent, sorry po, hindi naiayos yung aking pag-type. Okay, superintendent might be of concern at the micro level, while those of a teacher in the classroom might be important at the micro level. So bakit po ganito? So kasi nga nandoon lagi sa idea of planning, nandoon sa idea of designing. Sino yung mga nasa taas na nag-i-implement nun bago po ito mapunta doon sa tinatawag nating instruction within the classroom. So yun po yung micro. So the term level, ayan, mahalaga po na ginagamit natin yung level. Why? Because it is used here and in discussion that follows does not refer to where state or provincial board classroom, etc. Various process occurs but to the level of the process in terms of specificity regardless of where it is carried out organizationally. So, yun po yung ibig sabihin nitong pagle-level na to. Saan po ba natin mafo-focus? Okay. So, mahalaga po na hindi natin makalimutan saan natin gustong bigyan ng pansin yung evaluation natin. Sa macro level ba o sa micro level? Okay, so ito po yung nakuha kong figure na maganda nating tignan na mag-i-explain kung paano ba nagaganap from the macro level going down to macro level. So dito sa sa paradigm na ito, makikita natin si means instructional planning. Ito po yung nakikita nyo sa taas. Tapos I is for instructional operation. Yung IO is the strategies of curriculum instruction. So makikita po natin horizontal po 'yon. Naka-horizontal siya. Ibig sabihin, linear. Meron siyang isang direksyon na nagsisimula sa instructional planning, papasok sa operation, and then papasok sa instruction system. Ngayon doon po natin makikita yung macro and micro. So, yung big M na nakikita nyo, that stands for macro. And small m stands for micro. So, para mas maliwanag po sa atin, based doon sa research na binasa ko, there are 6 levels of classifications noong macro and micro para mas makita po natin. Kaya may makikita kayo dito na macro double prime. Ayan po yung may dalawang guhit. So, sabihin, yan yung schools program. Nasa pinakatuktok. Napakalawak niyan. Okay, the second one is micro prime. So, pag sinabi nating microprime, bababa ngayon yan. Kaya naka-vertical naman, pababa ngayon. Coming from the domains pataas. So, bababa siya on the macro domain. Macro pa rin to kasi programs and courses ito. Programs and courses. And then, it will now go down again doon sa tinatawag nating macro. Ito na yung modal. Modal domain. Kasama po dyan yung micro, which is instructional units. Ito na yung general lesson activities. At may mas mababa pa, which is micro prime. Under na to ng micro domain. Yung mga lessons, activities, wherein strategies kasi ito ano yung mga paano ba pinaplano ng teacher. So dito papasok talaga dito ang mga teachers kasi yung taas talagang more on the administrative side ito. Kung titingnan natin ang macro level, nandirito yung mga heads, yung mga bumuo, yung ating mga specialist in curriculum. Pero pagdating sa micro level, so ibig sabihin, pati lesson planning, pati instruction, strategies ng teacher under ng microdomain ay hindi natin dapat nakakalimutan when it comes to evaluation. So when we evaluate, dapat alam natin saang level ba tayo? Tayo ba ay nasa microdomain, nasa modal tayo, or nasa microdomain? Okay, clear po ba? Naiintindihan po, sobra ko po bang bilis? Hello po?
Okay lang, ma'am.
Okay lang.
Okay, ma'am. Opo.
Salamat po.
Okay lang.
Mamaya na lang po ako tatanggap po ng tanong. Baka may tanong po kayo. Okay. So,
Alright.
use of the framework presented here would allow the evaluator to specify more precisely the nature of what is being evaluated. So the decision maker and the evaluator might then be able to determine if they agree on what is to be evaluated. So what kinds of information are needed and whether the evaluator is actually evaluating what he claims to be. So, maganda po, talagang napaka systematic, no, ng evaluation kung ganito natin siya titignan. Kumbaga hindi sasabog yung evaluation natin kasi very important din po syempre sa evaluation ay yung mga tools, no, on how to mga tools na gagamitin natin to evaluate. And remember, part ng ating magiging discussion po ay yung mga models on evaluation. So, doon po natin makikita kung ano po ba ang best evaluation tool or evaluation model that could be used when it comes to the idea of the leveling of the curriculum evaluation. Okay, so an exact specification of the nature of what is being evaluated leads an evaluator to consider whether the methodology to be employed in the evaluation is appropriate to the level and stage of concern. Yun nga po yung sinasabi ko kanina, nauna ako dun sa aking presentation. So, maganda po ito na talagang para po bang pag nagre-research tayo, kailangan alam natin ano po ba yung tema natin, ano yung gusto nating i-hit, ano yung concepts, hanggang saan po yung parameters natin para at least klaro sa atin ano ba yung gusto nating i-evaluate. Kasi bakit natin i-evaluate? Para alam natin kung ito ay kailangang baguhin o kailangan pang pagandahin o kailangan ng tanggalin. So katulad po sa PNU, I will just give you our experience in PNU, no? Since ako po ay part ng UC Mimo, every summer po we do our Optic Summit. So pag sinabi pong Optic Summit, lahat po ng units ng PNU from graduate to pababa po, graduate, undergraduate plus ang aming ITL, ini-evaluate namin yan taon-taon kung yung kurso ba ay yung curriculum po ba ng buong university na ino-offer namin ay nakakasagot doon sa mga hinihingi ng CMO, ng CHED. So, paano po namin ginagawa yan? Nagkakaroon po muna kami ng micro level. So, nag-start po muna kami. So, bago kami mag-convene dito sa tinatawag naming Optic Summit, sa bawat offices po, like for example, sa Faculty of Behavioral and Social Sciences, quarterly po. Actually, hindi na quarterly dahil nga sa needs sa accreditation, nangyayari, like for example, ako ang UC Mimo coordinator, at the same time ako rin yung Area 3, may hawak ng curriculum instruction. We see to it na yung mga learning outcomes na aming nilalagay ay na isasagawa para pag nagkaroon kami ng reporting sa buong academic year, kasi yun po ang i-report namin. So, dun pa lang makikita namin, dapat ito, babaguhin ito, dapat ayusin ito, masyado atang sobra yung mga requirements sa bata. So, lahat na po yun. Lahat ng aspect from micro hanggang sa umakyat po siya sa macro level. Kasi yung macro level po namin sa university ay yung Optic Summit na talagang tinitignan at binubusisi na to ng ating VPA, yung Vice President for Academics, kasi siya po ang pinaka-main boss namin. So, from the faculty, umaakyat po yan sa ASOCDIN, aakyat sa Dean, and then aakyat po sa VPA hanggang sa i-approve na naman po ito ng ating presidente, kasi yun po ang pinaka nasa macro level, yung mga nasa taas. At yan po ay ina-approve ng Academic Council at ng BOR. So, makikita po natin dito, yung may mga trabaho ang bawat posisyon na nasa sistema ng education. So, hindi po dito naiiwanan dapat yung teachers when we evaluate. Kasi sila yung nakakaranas ng mga first-hand information when it comes to instructions. So, sila po ang makakapagsabi kung may dapat baguhin o hindi. On the side of DepEd, siguro po si Sir Pami mamaya makakapag-explain yan because I do not, although galing ako, no, I have already parang 17 years, no, ano pangalan nito? Meron akong 17 years na na-render sa DepEd, pero hindi ko kasi nakita yung sarili ko as part of this evaluation, ano. Talagang medyo nakakalungkot isipin. Pero I don't know kung meron na po ba ngayon. Mamaya na lang siguro ma-discuss kapag may discussion po tayo. So, the use of the framework presented here would allow the evaluator to specify more precisely the nature of what is being evaluated. So, maganda po yon. Yung kaninang pinakita ko po, mahanap natin ano yung nature ng i-evaluate natin. So, the decision maker and the evaluator might then be able to determine if they agree on what is to be evaluated. Kasi usually naman po, ang nag-evaluate din ito yung mga implementers nito. So, hindi nag-iisa yon. Marami po yon. Pwedeng maaaring nanggaling sa mga stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, papasok po dyan yung pinag-aralan natin na inside and outside stakeholders. Katulad din po sa amin sa PNU, laging may say ang outside stakeholders at saka inside stakeholders. Sino po ba yung mga inside stakeholders? Ma-review lang natin ng konti. So, pag inside po, nandiyan po yung admin, nandiyan yung teachers. Okay. Pero pag outside po yan, usually, parents yan, yung ating mga students, yan na. At saka kung meron tayong mga, lalong-lalo na sa senior high school, dahil meron po silang mga partners, ano, mga kinukuhang mga partners, kasama sila in evaluating the curriculum or the instruction kung saang level nyo gusto. So, makita rin dito what kinds of information are needed and whether the evaluator is actually evaluating what he claims to be. So, ano po ito, hindi parang suntok sa buwan na nag-evaluate ka. Kaya maganda pong example nito, no, lalo na tayo nag-undergo tayo ng accreditation. Kasi yung accreditation po is one of one way of evaluating, lalong-lalo na sa atin. So, maganda na nag-undergo tayo at nakikita natin on how they evaluate. Pero ngayon po, ngayon, nag-ISO po ang PNU at meron kaming AACO, magsi-second phase na kami. Pero syempre, katulad niya, nagkakaroon po ngayon ng problema kasi nga, nagbago yung sistema ng education natin wherein dati talaga, ang modality is face-to-face, ngayon nagbago. So ngayon, ayan, magbabago na naman yung detalye at yung mga parameters ng pag-i-evaluate. So these are the certain ideas, medyo pinapasok ko lang po na talagang mabusisi itong pag-i-evaluate ng curriculum. So, an exact specification of the nature of what is being evaluated leads an evaluator to consider whether the methodology to be employed in the evaluation is appropriate to the level and stage of concern. Okay, so behavioral objectives, yan po, nabanggit ko yan kanina. So, malalaman niya kung ano ang methodology na gagamitin. And then, behavioral objectives are useful in evaluating instruction at the micro level. So, ito nga, sinasabi dito, kapag ka very specific na, yung mga behavioral objectives, mas bagay siya sa micro level. So, the specific learner behaviors described as outcomes may be measurably stated at this level. So, pag broad naman, macro level, curriculum designers should not be forced to state desired outcomes in such specific terms for there are too many variations to be considered. Dahil nga napakalaki, napakalawak ng spectrum, not unlike dito sa micro level, basta nandiyan yung behavioral objectives, madali na natin silipin. Pero pag broad yung macro level, tandaan natin, doon sa macro level, may dalawang stage pa tayo doon sa framework kanina. bago tayo makarating talaga dun sa pinakamababa. So, kailangan definido po sa atin yon. So, through the use of curriculum instruction matrix to specify the level and stage of the educational endeavor being evaluated, the evaluator will be able to focus on the exact level and stage of concern and make a rational decision as the most appropriate evaluative strategy. So, yun po kanina, yung matrix na yung nakita natin kanina, based on that, we can form our own matrix. Ano ba yung gusto nating i-hit doon? Is it coming from the instruction o di ba, pinakita ko po kanina yung proseso na pinagdadaan in vertical. So, pwede po natin hanapin doon. Saan po ba doon ang gusto nating maging focus? Okay, so in conclusion, the failure of evaluators to specify in clear, ambiguous terms the nature of what is being evaluated is a major cause of many of the difficulties of evaluation. Since nga po ito ay nanggaling sa isang research, ito yung kanilang conclusion at sinasabi ng mga expert na kaya nagkakaroon ng problema when it comes to evaluation kasi nga hindi nagiging precise, no? Evaluators frequently do not evaluate what they claim to be evaluating. B, recognize the importance of considering the level of concern in designing evaluative strategies. Okay, balikan po natin yung kanina, no? Yung, kaya lagi pong parang ansama-sama ng loob natin pagka ang pinag-uusapan po ay yung pag-i-evaluate nga natin doon sa, nakalimutan ko na naman po. Sorry po, ano nga po uli yung sinabi ko kanina? Laging pasi yung nasa isip ko. Sorry po.
PISA.
Sorry po, sorry. Nami-mental block po ako. Yung PISA, sorry. Okay, di ba yung PISA po? Medyo laging sumasama yung loob natin kasi ang tinitignan natin, in-evaluate yung ating mga estudyante based on sa kung ano yung result ng kanilang exam. Pero klaro po ba sa atin, no? In our context as Filipinos, ano ba talaga yung in-evaluate ng PISA? In-evaluate po ba nito ang whole curriculum? In-evaluate po ba nito ang tungkol lang sa language at tungkol sa math? Kasi ano po para hindi tayo masyadong masaktan. Dapat tayo, alam natin kung anong klaseng evaluation yung ginamit sa atin at kung saan lang yung parameters ng evaluation. So, para alam naman natin kung ano talaga ang claim ng PISA. Ano ba ang purpose nila to evaluate at ano ba yung kanilang ini-evaluate sa atin? Kasi parang as if tinignan natin na yung PISA ay evaluation of the whole curriculum. Kasama na yung ating K-12 program, kasama na yung pagtuturo, kasama na lahat-lahat na po. So ano ba talaga? Kasi maaaring kasama sa evaluation, syempre hindi po mawawala. Remember, kapag tayo ay nagpa-plan, kasama rin dyan yung mga ano natin, mental block po ako. Yung ating mga kagamitan, di ba po, facilities. O, kasama rin po dyan, syempre, yung fund. So, saan po ba? Ano, yung PISA po ba, saan lang siya nakafocus? Kasi baka tignan po natin to ng micro level, macro level, pero naman pala, ang tinitignan lang ay micro. So, medyo ako talagang nung piniprepare ko to, sabi ko, dapat pala talaga nating tignan yan. Katulad din po nung, di ba po, minsan, top 10 schools or top 10 universities. O paano nasabi na top 10 sila? Saang banda o saang konteksto ng evaluation sila in-evaluate para sila ay masabi na nasa top 10 sila. So, maganda po nating pag-isipan as curriculum and instruction students, no? Another, sana hindi rin po natin magawa na itong pagkakamali na yung recognize the importance of considering the level of concern in designing evaluate strategies. Okay, kasi nga ito rin po ay cause ng difficulty. So dapat alam natin ano ba yung mga design. Kaya mahalaga po talaga tong kurso natin na maunawaan natin ano yung mga designs na gagamitin natin. Kasi kung hindi po natin alam yung designs at yung mga models na yan, hindi ko po alam kung paano natin gagawin na evaluate. Wala po siguro tayong karapatan. Yan nga po yung na-share sa akin ng isang professor na minsan sa colloquium daw, may nag-defend dahil parang may ginamit siyang may gusto siyang i-evaluate. Pero nung tinanong siya, ano ang mga evaluation models na alam niya, na pwede niyang gamitin, wala pong maisagot yung CIN student. So, ako po talagang medyo kinakabahan ako doon. Kaya ngayon, ngayong may klase po tayo ng curriculum evaluation, talagang since nakikita ko sa result ng research na ito, na it's very relevant, no? As a student to really know, no, by heart yung mga designs in evaluating strategies. And then letter C is consider the importance of hierarchical and sequential procedure for the design of educational programs. So, ano po ang ibig sabihin nito? So, alam dapat natin yung bureaucracy ng ating sistema. Alam natin yung sequence ng procedure. Kaya nga po magandang na pag-aralan talaga natin, prerequisite ng subject natin is yung planning, designing, and then yung implementation. Kasi alam natin kung nasa ang banda o parte noong implementation o nung plano nagkaroon ng problema at kailangan nating i-troubleshoot. Kasi kasi ito na po yung pinaka-last last na trabaho ng curriculum developer or curricularist, yung mag-evaluate siya para makabalik siya dun sa step. Kasi nakikita po natin dito, this is very cyclical. Ang trabaho natin, cyclical siya. So, from planning up to evaluation, then babalik po tayo ulit. Remember, ako rin po ang nag-report nito before sa isang klase. Okay, so, and the last one is, we have to clarify the purpose of the evaluative study and have no way of doing so because educational terminology is used ambiguously without any common basis for definition. Yan nga po yung kaninang sinabi ko. Halimbawa yung sa PISA. So kailangan talaga well-defined. Ano po ba? Kasi ang daling tignan, napakalawak ng salitang evaluation pero hindi natin alam saan ba ito nakafocus, on the macro level ba or sa micro. Pagdating ng macro, napakalawak pa po yan. So these are the things that we have to understand when we do evaluation on the basis of its level on the macro or micro. So ayan po, yung aking present ay nakabase po dito sa nakuha ko, Evaluating Curriculum and Instruction po. Na ang author ay si Marvin Alkin. So maganda po siyang basahin buong buo. Okay, so marami pong salamat sa inyong pakikinig. Sana po ay may natutunan po kayo sa akin ngayong gabi. Salamat po.
Okay, thank you. Sino po yung partner mo, ma'am?
Si Sir Pami po.
Sir Pami. Okay. So later na po yung Q&A natin para po iisa lang po muna natin lahat ng presentations nito.
Sir Pami.
Hello everyone, good evening.
Yes.
Andito na ako. Inaayos ko lang ha, just a minute.
So, si Sir Pami po kasi, siya yung magpapakita sa atin ng actual, ng mga examples sa atin.
Yes, examples only on how to do the curriculum evaluation in macro level and the macro level. And since my focus is more on alternative learning systems, so I apologize that most of my sharing will be coming from alternative learning systems. Would that be okay for everyone?
Okay po.
No problem, sir.
Mag-share na ako ha, yung entire screen. Oh, wait. Saglit lang po. Okay, share ko. Nakikita nyo na po ang screen ko?
Yes, sir.
Yes po.
Sir. Sinabi kanina ni Ma'am Vicky na ang pinagkaiba ng macro and micro level, macro and the micro levels of evaluation is depending on tawag dito sa scope. Okay? Pag sinabi daw na micro level, more on instruction, nasa school level, o mas maliit ang scope, while the macro level, basically sa mga nabasa ko, more on the national standard siya. What is the purpose of the education at the national level? Okay, to have a the deeper understanding on the micro level, I have here the Tyler's model. Kasi we cannot do evaluation based again on my reading without knowing prior knowledge on the different types of model. Kailangan talaga meron daw model. Same with the development. Kung ano yung in our class with Ma'am, sino ang professor natin? I forgot.
De Lara.
No, Ma'am
Tom
Wilma.
Reyes, Doc Reyes.
Dr.
Doc
Reyes,
Reyes.
Dr.
Doc
Reyes
Reyes,
on
sorry.
the foundations of curriculum. We discussed the curriculum development process na pinasadahan din natin ang implementation. At the same time, we have the evaluation. So whatever we have crafted or developed must be evaluated. Then therefore, the results of the evaluation must be used again para ulit sa pag-curriculum or sa development o di kaya ay pagsasaayos ng curriculum or ng any program. In Tyler's model, it focused more on the instructional objective. Ang purpose niya palagi is to measure students' progress towards objectives. Kung mapapansin niyo, sinabi kanina ni Ma'am Vicky na ang micro level is more on instruction level. So this one is most appropriate to use in the micro level evaluation. How it is being done? First, in the development, we have to state the objectives. Then, what are the learning experiences? And we have to organize the experiences and evaluation. Evaluation would mean the assessment or the results, the classroom assessment per se, when it comes to the classroom level. I have here this one. I have here an article, an assessment of alternative learning system, accreditation and equivalency, curriculum for secondary clientele of Dr. Rocco A. Labarete in of Leyden Normal University. Okay. To contextualize more how micro level evaluation is done using the Tyler's model. The purpose of this one is to assess the curriculum, the writing curriculum for secondary learners in view of developing an enhanced session guide. So, mapapansin nyo, mag-evaluate siya in a form of developing again a session guide. And di ba sa types of curriculum that we have, this may fall under a written one. Then the study concentrated more on this one. Dito na papasok yung sinasabing na state objectives. So basically kasi the purpose of the ALS writing curriculum focuses more on skill facilitation in terms of objectives, the content, methods, skills, and assessment. So makikita ka agad that na ang gagamitin niya na model ay Tyler model na tinatawag na objective-based model or a linear model. Tinatawag din kasi siya ng ibang author as a linear model. Okay. The study also intended to find out what are the clientele's performance. Pag sinabing clientele, ito yung A&D learners, the AL students, concerning the expression of ideas, kasi nga writing, then concerns of the implementers and the clientele about its implementation. However, ang focus na lang natin ay sa number 1 kasi mas appropriate siya based on sa una kong pinita, this one, na may objectives, may experiences, may the instruction, and of course, the assessment. Okay. Ito ang ginamit yung framework. However, it is not stated that ang ginagamit yung framework ay Tyler's model, kundi ang binanggit niya is the CA, Constructive Alignment Teaching Model, na basically hango pa din siya sa Tyler's Objectives Model. From the assessment curriculum, kung ano yung objectives, punta tayo dun sa key elements of the teaching learning process. Nandiyan yung sinasabi ni Tyler na what would be the objectives, what would be the experiences of the learners, and what should be the measure on what should be the means in measuring learners' performance, or is there any manifestation that the objective stated has been acquired by the learners? Sa Sa development, sa curriculum development, we studied also that, sinasabi kanina ay binabanggit ni Ma'am Vicky kanina, na sino ba talaga ang owners ng isang program or ng curriculum. So therefore, ang consider niyang participants ay yung mga program implementers. Bakit? Kasi they know more about the program, and 48 respondents yung mga ALS learners kasi yung context ay nasa ALS. So therefore, ang dapat kung anong program ang i-evaluate, yun din dapat kung sino ang tumatanggap ng program. Okay, the study followed the case study design, and dito makikita sa lokal, isa lang siyang district. So therefore, a district in Balogo, Leyte, sa discussion kanina ni Ma'am Vicky, malalaman na natin na micro level pag ito ay mas smaller ang level niya. So a district is considered a micro level in the DepEd context. Okay. Kailangan din daw kanina, sabi ni Ma'am, not daw, sorry, Ma'am Vicky told us that there should be resources kung saan manggagaling yung mga information that would help us to evaluate the curriculum. So in this case, in this study, the researcher considered the following: the sample writing composition, kasi mas authentic ang makikita ng dito in forms of the assessment. Yung questionnaire, bakit siya gumamit ng questionnaire? Kasi to assess whether the objectives are met. And of course, sa learner's experiences, sabi ni Tyler, dapat doon, makita natin kung ano experience ng learner based doon sa set objectives. So therefore, ang ginamit niya ay focus group discussion. Can you follow, my classmates? O mabilis ako?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. And ito yung naging results niya. Take note, we followed ang sinusundan natin at the Tyler's objective, right? The first one to be assessed, ang focus dapat ay objective. So therefore, na-identify ng learner ay ng researcher that the writing curriculum, the alternative learning system, is taught to equip clientele with the fundamental knowledge of micro-language scale, to be able to write composition of academic standard using the English language, focused on the development and mastery of the English language features. Ang content, paano daw tinuturo ang ano mga activities involved based on the Tyler's model. Tapos ito yung findings niya. Heavy and focused on activities and practice exercises about spelling. So mas ano na siya, mas nasa classroom level na ang pinag-uusapan. Vocabulary development, speech parts, agreements of subject and verbs, sentence types, capitalization, punctuation, and styles of paragraph and development. Next one, paano ang experience ng learner? Sabi kanina ni Tyler, dapat daw malaman natin kung ano ang experience ng learner when it comes to the curriculum implementations, and therefore, in ALS, curriculum is facilitated following the first, nagkakaroon muna ng pre-writing, then the post-writing, and the writing schema. Okay, then the contents are recited. Ito na yung delivery. Paano na siya dinideliver ang curriculum would involve recitation, face-to-face, or the small group discussion technique throughout the process in consideration of the clientele's learning pace. Meron din silang visuals such as pictures, graphic organizers, yung mga concept map, and plot map are commonly employed. Then sa dulo, binanggit ni Tyler, there should be evaluation process. Pag sinabi kasing evaluation, not the curriculum evaluation per se, but how to assess that the objectives are being acquired by the learners. So kung ang objective natin sa una is to equip clientele with a fundamental knowledge on yung sa paano magsulat ng composition, ang na-find out niya na assessment na ginagamit is by means of informal and formal theme writing generation. So nagkakaroon ng alignment ng objectives din na the assessment, and how it is being done by means of the implementer-made rubric. Okay. Anong evaluate, the conclusion ng nung nasunod niya yung process, the constructive alignment teaching model based on the Tyler's objectives model, ano daw ang naging conclusion niya? Ang sabi niya dito, there is a dire need for a curricular re-engineering of the current instructional delivery for writing as a macro language skill. siguro 'di ba napaka bigat, sabi ni Ma'am Vicky kanina. Alamin natin what is the purpose of the evaluation para hindi tayo masaktan. Example, nung sa PISA, sabi na, ano ba ang purpose nung bakit kailangan tayong ganun, ay bakit tayong sumali sa PISA? So the same way with this one, so what is the purpose ba natin why to evaluate the curriculum of the writing curriculum of the ALS, and why did the researcher come up with this conclusion that there is a dire need for engineering. Kasi nga nakita niya doon na ang ginagamit lang, di ba, ito lang, yan lang ang mga tawag dito, face-to-face, small group discussion techniques, tapos visuals and pictures and graphic organizers only. So, ang end goal why we are conducting why we are doing the curriculum evaluation is number one, maging input ulit siya sa curriculum na gagawin. Number two, ay maging mabago or ma-improve ang delivery. So, ano ang naging recommendation niya ni Mr. Labarete is to adopt the scaffolding theory to refashion its instructional process. So, kung pag makikita nyo, the result ng conclusion niya na i-re-engineer ang instructional delivery is congruent with his recommendation to use the scaffolding theory. So no need to discuss more on the scaffolding theory kasi alam naman natin na 'di ba ang pag sinabing scaffolding theory is to provide support until such time na ang learner ay kaya na magsulat ng sarili niyang composition. Okay, that is one model only. Ang daming model how to evaluate the curriculum, but for this article na sinulat ni journal rather, or the research ni Labarete, I think that the Tyler model is best suits to explain the context. Okay, let's proceed with the macro evaluation. Pag sinabing ang discussion ni Ma'am Vicky kanina, and I guess everybody would agree that macro evaluation focuses more on it is more on the national level. What is the purpose of the curriculum? What is the impact of the curriculum in the national sector or in the government at large, in social, political, economic? Ano ba ang nagito? That is the very reason why we have evaluated the BEC. Before kasi ang tawag sa Department of Education prior to K-12, yan ay tinatawag na EBEC. Ay EBEC. BEC means Basic Education Curriculum. Then nabago siya kasi nga nagkaroon ng macro evaluation at tinawag yung Enhanced Basic Education Curriculum na ngayon ay naging K-12 curriculum. Ano ang mga basis ng mga evaluations na to? Na bakit nagkaroon why there is a sudden change? Although it is matagal na dapat, but then ngayon lang na-implement, sorry, that it is not sudden, dapat matagal na. This one, number one is the Monroe survey that I forgot the date, and number two ay yung analysis of basic education in the Philippines by Magno and in 2012. Kung mapapansin nyo, di ba sa Monroe survey, sinasabi doon na dapat i-decongest natin ang curriculum at magdagdag ng isa pang grade level kasi nga kulang ang curriculum ng Pilipinas para to attune in the global contour. Another one is the analysis of basic education in the Philippines ni Magno, na sinasabi niya na kulang naman daw tayo ng 2 years, kaya tsaka ang science, math and English subjects natin is are far behind though sa curriculum those of other countries like Singapore, Japan, and Western countries. Okay. I cannot ma'am, I apologize that I cannot share a model in evaluating the macro evaluation in macro evaluation kasi alam mo yon, parang ang hirap magsalita or mag-discuss ng something that you are not an expert onto this. So, meantime, ito lang muna, ma'am. Okay? And that's all. And good evening, everyone.
Okay, salamat. Meron pa po ba?
Ma'am, yes.
I'll be sharing you a classmates para sa ano natin, para sa gagawin nating essay ba yun? A reflection paper. I'll be sharing you the article of Labaretes. Thank you.
Ah, pwede pa po ba siya? Yung pong lahat ng mga pinresent ninyo, and then some of the readings na pinagpuno ninyo, ang usapan po natin ay i-email gas po natin siya para po sa reflection ng mga classmates ninyo. They will choose one. So, dun sa mga presentations, and then gagawin po kasi ng reflection. Okay. Sino pong kasunod?
Ma'am, ako po.
Sige po.
Okay, good evening po, classmates, and good evening po, Doc Arlene. Can you see my screen po?
Okay, good evening po. Ma'am, ano pa? Process pa lang sa akin. Process.
Okay, sige po. Ma'am, clear po ba ako?
Nakikita niyo na? Yeah, your sound is clear, but your presentation, wala pa. Hindi pa
Sige
siya
po.
nag-appear.
Okay.
Nakikita niyo na, guys?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Okay.
po. So, again, good evening. Okay, my topic this evening is 21st century education, okay, promises and possibilities in the changing paradigm of curriculum. Actually, matatouch niya rin po ang mga na-discuss po ni Ma'am Vicky at saka ni Sir Pami. Okay, so what would be the content of my report? So my report will revolve around 3 topics. So the first one is the definition of 21st century education. So why it is needed in our time, and also I will discuss about the curriculum models which can be used for the inclusion of 21st century education in the curriculum. Okay, I will also discuss the response of our own basic education and tertiary education curricula to the 21st century education. And lastly, I will discuss how our 21st century education, okay, our curriculum with 21st century education was evaluated. At yung example ng sinasabi kanina ni Miss Vicky at saka ni Sir Pami na a macro evaluation. So you can see our learners are changing. Okay? Today's students represent the first generation to grow up with the new digital technologies. So we have different names for these learners. We call them digital natives, millennials, net generation, I am generation. I am generation means instant message generation, the gamer generation, and Pedro in 2006 called them NLM, or the new millennium learners. With the kind of learners that we have right now, it is but important that we provide them with a curriculum that develops high learning thinking skills along with technology literacy. Now, we also see new competencies for a complex world that we live in right now. We see societies become more knowledge-based. With this, schools must also evolve to ensure that the skills needed by the learners, okay, to be able to thrive in this fast-changing world are provided. Okay, so the answer is, of course, 21st century education. Now, according to UNI in 2007, 21st century education is grounded on learning that is adopted to keep pace with the demands and expectations of the 21st century. So you see, 21st century education comes with competencies and skills that the learners should master. And its overall vision, according to Scott in 2015, is the curriculum must keep pace with the current needs and expectations of the 21st century. Scott also discussed in her article the curriculum models which can be used for the integration of 21st century education in the curriculum. In one of these models that I will be discussing, we followed one of the models here. So I will be presenting 4 models, okay, including the one we are using in our own curriculum. And well, the first model is known as the other 3 Rs. Actually, there are several, actually there are more. Maraming models na diniscuss si Scott, but I only chose 4. Okay, so the first model is known as the other 3 Rs, whose proponents were Sternberg and Subotnik in 2006. Okay, so their model includes the 3 Rs. Okay, first R is reasoning, which includes analytical, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. Okay, another R for resilience, life skills such as flexibility, adaptability, and self-resilience. And another one is responsibility, the last R, for wisdom or the application of intelligence, creativity, and knowledge for a common good. Another curriculum model which we can use for integration of 21st century education is the one proposed by Wagner in 2010. So in his book, The Global Achievement Gap, Why Even Our Best Schools Don't Teach the New Survival Skills Our Children Need, and What Can We Do About It? So he mentioned 7 survival skills for the 21st century life, work, and skills. So these are critical thinking and problem solving, okay, collaboration and leadership, agility and adaptability, initiative and entrepreneurialism, okay, effective oral and written communication, accessing and analyzing information, and curiosity and imagination. So the last 2 models, okay, the one is from actually even APEC, no, crafted their own 21st century 21st century education curriculum model, along with business people yan. So they crafted this with business people. So they said that the 21st century competencies would include lifelong learning, problem solving, self-management, and teamwork. Okay. So the last model, which is the one we are using in our curriculum, okay, is crafted by the Partnership for 21st Century Skills, or known as P21. So the model is called P21 Framework for 21st Century Learning, and it includes the 4 C's, no, of 21st, or 4 C's for 21st century skills. Communication, that's the first C. Second C, collaboration. Another C for critical thinking. And the last C for creativity. Okay, so those are some of the curriculum models we can use for 21st century education, integrating it into our curriculum. Okay, so what was the response, okay, of our government? So there is a need for our curriculum to respond to the call of integrating 21st century education, and so we did. So the enhanced, of course, there were educational reforms, and so one of the salient features of these educational reforms, the Enhanced Basic Education Act and the curricular reforms in the tertiary education, okay, is the inclusion of the 21st century skills. for the students to master. With regards to the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, so once you're done with your kindergarten, with the enhanced elementary and junior high school curriculum, and also the specialized senior high school curriculum, ang goal is to holistically develop Filipinos. And along with that is the acquisition of 21st century skills. That's according to DO 20 series of 2019. Actually, last year lang to na-issue the guidelines, no, for this, the inclusion of 21st century skills. So in the basic education, so there are 4 mentioned there and explained in the DO. The information, media and technology skills, learning and innovation skills, effective communication skills, and life and career skills. So this should be integrated in the curriculum. On the other hand, CMO 20, series of 2013, issued by CHED, revised the general education curriculum, and just like the basic education, included the 21st century skills in Section 1, the goals and context of GE, which states that we should prepare the Filipinos for the demands of the 21st century life and the requisite abilities to anticipate and to adapt to swiftly changing situations, to think innovatively and create solutions to problems. So you see, both the DepEd, okay, the basic education, and the tertiary education incorporated, okay, 21st century education in our curricula. Okay, now the last part of my report is actually a macro curriculum evaluation. This is very specific kasi kanina sabi nga ni Ma'am Vicky, kailangan alam natin ano yung i-measure, ano yung titingnan. So this is a study conducted, actually parang 1 year siyang ginawa, okay, by Dr. Claire Scholar, okay, and it was presented in March 2020, commissioned by UNICEF and DepEd. So this is an analysis of the incorporation of our 21st century skills, okay, as applied in our K-12 program. So limited pa lang, the tertiary wala pa yata siyang, wala ko nabasa or nakita. So this is all about, this is for the basic education program. So the model used in this particular study was ACER's alignment model for 21st century skills integration. So there are 3 prerequisites for this model, which you will see later on, and then the 10 key steps in integrating 21st century skills in the curriculum. This is an example of what Ma'am Vicky also is saying, na you have to be clear on what to evaluate. So yung assessment nila or yung evaluation nila focus mainly on the assessment, on the curriculum, and on the pedagogy. Okay, so I will just present to you the findings of the said study. So for the first prerequisite, ang una nilang requirement is to see that you are emphasizing in your mission and vision statement the 21st century curriculum. And what they found out is that we have actually, because of the DepEd memo, okay, or order, now we have that naman. So they found their finding about that is that the definition of the skills framework and mission statement of a holistically developed Filipino needs to be unpacked. Kulang pa. Okay, kulang pa. Then it needs to be widely disseminated. So, hindi masyadong alam ng educational community. Okay, the material should be released via new visually appealing graphics and clearly written text. So this is one of their findings, okay? And so for the prerequisites sa mission and vision, kailangan siyang alam ng concern, no? regarding this 21st century skills. Okay. Another prerequisite or requirement nila is adopting skill development framework. Okay, so they found out they suggest to develop frameworks for all 7 skills and conduct training with teachers to ensure that they understand the descriptions and how they are applicable in the classroom. Problem kasi with the 21st century skills, they are written, you can read them, okay, but hindi siya na-discuss fully, hindi siya masyadong naintindihan how to incorporate in the classroom. Okay? So, yung sabi na kailangan ganon, kailangan himay-himayin siya para ma-incorporate, maintindihan mabuti ng mga teachers who will implement, diba, sa classroom. Okay, so the third prerequisite, establishing a core technical team. They did this so just to enable the team to undertake extension work to scale the approach. Okay, now their findings regarding the curriculum using the 21st century skills, no? So they said to undertake a curriculum audit for the 4 skills identified by VO number 21, okay, across grades and subjects. So tingnan anong nangyayari sa 4 skills na to across grades and subjects. So another one, complete a full audit of the curriculum in order to describe patterns of skills integration. So once you have already the audit, you need to really look into how you can integrate these skills. Kasi medyo mahirap medyo mahirap din to sa teachers, right? Even sa tertiary ed, sa amin, because there are skills also na you need to develop in the learners, of course. So, yan. And then decide where additional consideration of skills integration might be most useful. Okay, another finding for pedagogy or teaching. So they said to identify teaching actions associated with the remaining skills based on their developed frameworks and descriptions. Okay. And then develop observation tools to capture the teaching action. So remember kanina kasi I mentioned about dapat himayin ang mga skills na to at maging specific as to what, okay, you want to measure, what you want to see, so that you can create an effective observation tool. Okay, paano mo at saka assessment tool para sa teachers din at saka sa curriculum itself. Okay. So develop teacher resources based on the identified actions. So kulang pa po ang teacher resources, reflecting a progressive nature of teacher development from those actions that are easiest to implement through to more sophisticated ones. Okay. And then another suggestion here is to work with the HEIs or the higher education institutions, and in particular teacher education institutions and teacher training institutions to incorporate skills into teaching method. With this, naalala ko yung discussion with Dr. Manzano ba? Am I right? Dr. Manzano last time, ano po? Yung in Japan, there would be centers, education centers na retired teachers would train new teachers. Okay, so I thought of that when I read this one. So that's also one good practice sana that we could do, helping one another. Lalo tayo na nasa HEI na meron namang education programs. Okay. Now, regarding assessment, last na po ito. Regarding assessment, so increase the scope of skills assessment in the NAT, okay, to include additional skills. So, kanina, after reading yung study, I realized na kaya pala din may NAT. No, I am not with basic education, kaya sorry po sa mga taga basic ed. So, hindi ko kasi I thought not, it's just there not to measure yung skills ng bata, okay, because my daughter also took NAT, okay, and saan siya inclined, saan siya magaling, okay, so that when she enters college, she would know, or the learner would know where to go, ano. Yun pala kasama siya sa development ng 21st century skills. Okay, assessment. Okay. So another one is develop classroom assessment prototypes for the skills to apply across grades and learning areas. Okay. So yun po yung content ng study, evaluation of the integration of 21st century skills in our basic ed curriculum. And that is the end of my presentation, my report tonight. Okay, so let me end with what Nelson Mandela said about education. Education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. Thank you po.
So, okay. So, nakatabla na po tayo. Wala na po ba? Wala na po mag-present?
Ma'am, parang last na po ako
Okay.
sa week
So,
namin.
let's see any questions, further clarification to our presenters, teachers po. Ayun, teachers naman kayo lahat. Okay. So, yun. Actually, sa pinresan kanina ni Ma'am Colin, basically, the entire, yung sinasabi nating macro curriculum, it is not just yun nga, actually the PISA, though it's, they want to measure the achievement of the students, but the thing is, if you can see, ewan ko kung sino nandito sa inyo sa SUC, but I think, I believe, even if you're in private university or private school, merong PASCO accreditation for the private schools, tama? Meron naman kaming ACOP for the SUC. Actually, pag nag-accreditation, yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Paul kanina, tinitignan yung 10 areas. Okay? Ultimong kanting po. Okay? Ultimong kanting ay tinitingnan how the auxiliary service affect the delivery of the curriculum. So basically, if you're going to examine and explore the macro curriculum, kung pag-uusapan natin yan, kaya nga po, sabi nga nila, tatlo lang sa buhay ng tao ang destiny. First is, you're going to pay tax. Second is, you're going to die. And the third is, you will pag-undergo ka ng curriculum reform. So, everybody na nag-aaral, na nagtatrabaho, nakaka-experience yun. So, basically, ang curriculum reform, ang educational reform ay nangyayari when we want to make changes when it comes to curriculum implementation based on the curriculum evaluation. So, yun po yung nangyayari. So, sino pa pong may, and doon naman po sa sinasabi ni Sir Pami kanina, actually, nakita ko yung pinresent ni Sir, parang doon sa conclusion, parang writing, may sinasuggest na gano'n. Tama po ba, Sir Pami? The problem is, ano ba talaga ang nature ng ating mga Yes po, yes, Sir Pami?
Ma'am, medyo mahina po kayo, ma'am. Kamagyan po.
Hello. Ang tinitingnan kasi dun sa iyo, nakita ko ay yung writing skills ng mga nasa out, tama? Dun sa conclusion.
Yes po, ma'am. Tama po. Opo.
Actually, if we will try to study the nature of the ALS, those ALS students, so titingnan natin kung saan sila nanggaling at ano ang kanilang ginagawa, they're out of school youth. Hindi nga youth kung minsan matatanda na yung mga yan, and they have family, they are working kung saan-saan. And the thing is, basically, hindi sila, yun nga, depende kasi kung anong gusto mong tingnan Dito kasi ang tinignan yung writing skills. And take note, yung mga nasa ALS na yan, bihira yung magsulat. Kasi in the first place, hindi sila researcher. In the second place, hindi nga talaga sila complete ng grade, ng basic education. That's why they fall under ALS. So basically, naghahanap buhay sila. Kung ang tatanong niyo sa kanila ay ang mga ginagawa nila sa pang-araw-araw, most probably, mataas ang magiging positive, ang magiging conclusion. Unfortunately, ang tinignan po kasi ay yung writing skills, which is bibihira sa kanila. Siguro ko sa pang-araw-araw nilang buhay ay very minimal yung trabaho nilang magsulat. Kung magsusulat man sila, ay magkukompute sila ng kanilang binili at mga bibilhin. So basically, yun nga that's why in doing a curriculum evaluation, the context is very important. And then the parameter, yung mga parameter na sinasabi, like for example, what I'm saying is, yung halimbawa sa accreditation, yung 10 areas, nakaset yung parameters na yun, na those are the contributing factor kung talagang maayos yung magiging curriculum implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So, yun. So, basically, bakit sa curriculum evaluation, medyo, yun nga, sabi ni Ma'am Cole, is very challenging and there are several issues because there are certain contexts and parameters that we need to address properly or else talagang yung kalalabasan ng curriculum evaluation hindi maganda kung hindi mabibigyan ng equal shall I say justice dun sa mga areas, dun sa mga parameter na sinet. So yun po kasi yung medyo mahirap. Yun yung very challenging. Like for example, the PISA, they just measure the achievement of the students. Especially yun nga, medyo nakakaya. Pero the thing is, yung bang mga kumuhang mga estudyante noon, first, ano ba ang library condition ng mga schools na pinagkunan ng participants na nag-test ng PISA? How about the canteen? Are they getting the right nutrition? Kasi before you can put something to their brain, you need to put something to their stomach. So ano po ba ang nangyayari? That's why kaya nga may mga program, like for example sa DepEd, may mga tayong mga feeding program. So those are the, kumbaga hindi siya nakikita, pero nagiging contributing factor siya pag tiningnan mo yung macro aspect ng curriculum evaluation. Hindi lang siya lagi sa test. Like for example sa assessment, when we say assessment, hindi lang siya laging yung summative lang. We need to know the formative assessment and it should be, kung ganun kahalaga, like for example, kung mahalaga ang summative, well, in katulad nga, para to measure kung talagang may natutunan. But the thing is, do you give or pay attention or give the same value, the same weight, like dun sa formative assessment before you proceed sa evaluation? Kasi yun yung springboard So basically, sa formative assessment pa lang, makikita mo na kung nasaan. And if we will try to, do sa formative assessment, for example, schools from Luzon to Mindanao, most probably magkakaiba sila ng level. Yun yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Collis kanina, very significant yung level. Okay? And then when you assess them with a standardized testing, so what will happen? So most probably when you the assessment or the summative assessment is part of the curriculum evaluation, and if we go into a macro level, like for example, countrywide, so basically, talagang magkakaroon ng problema. So yun yung sinasabi kanina ni Ma'am na issues and challenges when it comes to curriculum evaluation at the macro level. Well, it's the same thing kung ano nangyayari sa taas, ganun din ang nangyayari sa baba. So most probably in a classroom, so the same thing, if you're going to evaluate din, ang binigay na example ni Sir Fami ay ang ALS. Very controversial but really, really good topic. Sa ALS po kasi they don't have proper they are not included in the mainstream education. When I say mainstream education, hindi sila yung papasok, lalabas, mag-aaral, blah, blah, blah. So, iba't iba po yung context niyan. Merong single parent, merong breadwinner, merong blah, blah, blah. So, knowing the situation of each student sa micro level na po to, and then pag nilapatan po natin sa evaluation ng curriculum sa micro level, doon na po nagkakaroon ng pagkakaiba. Kaya nga that's why nagkaroon din tayo si DepEd ng memo na differentiated instruction. Pero the problem is, how do we define differentiated instruction? Meron bang malinaw na memo or policy or guidelines sa DepEd pagdating sa differentiated instruction? Actually, meron po akong estudyante ngayon that his master's thesis ongoing. So basically, nung hinanap niya yung guidelines and policy on differentiated instruction, wala. Pero nagbaba si DepEd ng memo, I think memo or order, na it should be, the classes somehow dapat nagkakaroon ng differentiated instruction. The thing is, how do you define differentiated instruction in a private school or in a public school, in a rural or in an urban school? So basically, when you interview teachers, so they don't have a generic definition of a differentiated instruction. Maybe it depends on their experience, or maybe it depends on what they read on the book, and then that's their understanding, and that's how they implement it inside the classroom. And then when they evaluate the students, then yun yung sinasabi natin sa level ng curriculum evaluation at the micro level. Kaya lang the problem is iba-iba nga yung lumalabas. Okay? And then ito yung sinasabi ni ma'am na sa 21st century learning. In many cases, they always say that the 21st century learning heavily focused on technology, heavily focused on, yun nga yung pinagsasabi ni ma'am na sinishare sa atin ni ma'am Aleli kanina. But the thing is, nakakalimutan ng iba na very minute, yung sinasabi nating lifelong learning na sinasabi before ng UNESCO. Or it's, yung 21st century, yung four pillars of learning, yung learning to be, learning to know, learning to live together, and blah, blah, blah. So basically, that's the very essence of the 21st century. It's not heavily focused on the technology or not heavily focused on the ICT or how the students adapt doon sa changing situation ng instruction with the use of technology. Actually, you can still apply critical thinking. You can still have this collaboration, the 4 C's. But the thing is, sometimes in a, like for example, in a very advanced city or urban area, nagiging context na nila yung technology. And the thing is, if we will try to understand the context of ICT in the Philippines, hindi po talaga nakikita yung sinasabi nating hindi na-satisfied ang qualification na siniset ng 21st century sa ICT. Kasi ilan lang pong percentage, nakikita niyo naman po ngayon, it's really happening now, okay? The reality versus expectation, we expected na lahat mga digital natives. Unfortunately, kung titingnan natin ang population ng basic education, ilan lang ang may access. As in yung true essence of ICT, yung, you know what I mean, the connection, the everything, the gadgets, blah, blah, blah. I think it's less than 20% of the total population of the entire country. So basically, hindi pa po tayo nakakarating doon sa sinasabi nating Education 4.0 kung ganun ang context ang pag-uusapan natin. So again, the context is very important when it comes to the 21st century learning. Kaya nagiging sugarcoat at nagiging lang ang Education 4.0, ang IR, Industrial Revolution, though it's really happening maybe in some parts or in some places of the world or in some parts of the country, but the thing is, nagmamagnify pa rin sa atin ang pagiging agricultural. Kasi tayo po ay taga-assemble lang ng mga gadgets. Hindi tayo ang nagpo-produce niyan. Dinadala yan dito sa Pilipinas, and then ina-assemble lang po yan. So basically, that's why yung mga sinasabi nating robotics, wala tayo nun. Maybe Japan and China and other countries have robotics, but the tingnan mo naman po lahat sa atin ay improvisation. Since the Monroe Resort, nag-improvisation na tayo. Until now, we still opted for improvisation, but I'm just saying na hindi naman po yung greater population ang may mga certain percentage po kasi. So basically, meron din naman tayong mga robotics na nagiging advanced, and thank you to those advanced, like for example, agencies and universities. And if we will try to look at the picture, sila rin yung may maayos na funding. So basically, the economics behind the adaptation, yun yung sinasabi nating Education 4.0, yung sinasabi nating IR. So basically, nakasalalay pa rin po siya sa economics. So, yung mga tipong ganun. But we are not saying na hindi natin kayang ma-reach yung 21st century learning. But basically, dun pa lang sa 4 pillars of learning, nakukuha natin siya. Kaya lang iniba ang tinitingnan natin. The life skills, the soft skills, the essential skills na sinasabing soft skills na ayaw tanggapin. Imagine mo, even sa paggamit ng salita, essential skills, soft skill, why we use soft. So basically, ang understanding nila pag soft it's nothing there, walang kalakas-lakas. So basically, so that's why some of the educators said essential skills, not the soft skills. But ano ba yung soft skills and hard skills? Ano yung difference? So yun po yung dapat naintindihan natin sa 21st century learning. Hindi lang siya laging sa advance ng technology or how the people use the technology, but paano ba nabubuhay? Okay, and a very simple thing na the mere fact na nakaka-survive sila kahit yung mga nandyan sa bangketa. Sabi nga nila, yung iba namatay na mayayaman at nasa magandang lugar, namatay na sa COVID, pero yung mga nandyan, yung mga nilalang na nasa hindi naman nagkaka-COVID. So, basically, it's also the art of survival, maybe for some, the 21st century, because this is very complicated. The 21st century is more advanced, very complicated, but still they were managed to survive, yung mga tipong ganun. So basically, skill na rin po yung mga ganun eh. So, na hindi natin na masyadong napipay attention pagdating sa education. So, and then also, yun nga, sa yung level of happiness. So basically, yung may mga suicidal tendency ng mga students. So that means hindi nila kayang mabuhay sa 21st century siguro kasi yung mga tipong ganun. And then there are some naman na walang-wala but they still survive. So that means they can still anchor and see the significance of the 21st century education. Okay po? So sino pa pong mayroong gustong i-feedback, comment, suggestion, and
Ma'am?
sharing po dito sa...
Yes po.
Yes, Ma'am Colleen.
Mayroon lang po akong gustong malaman, ma'am, sa DepEd ngayon. Meron po
Opo.
bang, meron po bang mga, kasi alam ko merong mga nasa, sa agency, sa DepEd, merong mga curricularist. Pero ang tanong ko, kasi parang wala akong nakikitang visible na nag-evaluate. Hindi katulad natin, meron po tayong accreditation. So sila, meron silang school-based. Pero parang ang school-based management na ginagawa, ang evaluation under ng school-based management is parang hindi ko alam kung ginagawa ba o baka nakafocus lang talaga sa teacher at the end of the school year na ini-evaluate yung kanilang mga CRA at MOV. Medyo ko doon, ma'am. Malabo po sa akin. Gusto ko lang pong makuha yung idea kasi parang yan po ang nakikita kong parang loopholes at butas na butas sa DepEd.
Any
Ma'am,
any representative?
Ma'am, permission to speak po?
Sige.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, good evening po, Doc. Good evening po, Doc.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am Vicky, yung regarding po dun sa sa SBM, actually, hindi po lahat ng schools, sad to say, na talaga, ma'am, nag-engage sa school-based management. May mga schools lang po talaga na nagpa-participate po doon since sila po yung laging tinatap ng mga ng DepEd, ng RO, ng CO na regarding po doon sa kanilang mga best practices. Pero actually, ma'am, talagang halimbawa po sa QC, ilan lang po ang talagang engaged dyan sa school-based management at yun talagang mayroon talagang parang allotted na classroom or parang sabi nila bodega daw kasi doon nakalagay yung mga artifacts, yung mga evidences ng mga best practices ng core principles ng SBM, which is yung curriculum and instruction, isa na nga po doon. So, hindi po talaga lahat ng school. Sa Quezon City, ang alam ko lang po dyan is yung Melencio Elementary pa po yun. Most of those schools na nagpa-participate is mga nasa elementary. Kasi sila po talaga yung parang simulat sa pool, maganda na talaga yung kanilang mga pinapakita o yung mga evidences po nila, ganun. Pero po sa high school, hindi po siya ganun na matunog. Opo. Katulad po
Yes.
sa amin, sa Batasan, we have that SBM, nag-participate po kami, pero hindi siya talagang regularly na as of my observation po, hindi po talaga regularly na may pumupuntang mga taga region office or taga central office. Pupunta lang sila sa to say mga for consolidation ng reports or quarterly or submission for the annual reports, parang ganun po, na masabi na merong nagaganap po na ganun. So, yun po. Kaya yung though yung amin naman po, yung mga artifacts namin, yung mga talagang lahat ng kailangan nilang makita is nasa isang room lang naman din talaga na organized, inayos po talaga. At talagang pag may bisita, doon ipupunta, doon makikita, yun. Then, monitoring lang din, parang ganun lang siya. Pero actually, ma'am, parang sa tingin ko, yung process ng doon po sila nagkukulang sa may feedback at saka yung giving po ng TA, technical assistance, pagdating po doon sa pag nagre-review po sila ng mga ganong sa implementation po. Yun ang probability.
Yes, ma'am, permission to speak lang po regarding dun sa kanina. Yun nga po, no, nakakalungkot isipin, ma'am, kasi my husband is a master teacher too. So, as we, review yung mga trabaho ng master teacher, kasama sila sa mga nagka-craft na po lalo na nasa senior high school. Nagka-craft sila ngayon ng mga programs nila, pero ang nakakalungkot, kumbaga walang community of practice kasi na walang tumutulong sa mga teachers in the field galing mismo sa national. So, ang hirap po nun, parang walang connection yung macro level doon sa micro level. So, pagdating po sa mga principals, which is higher in position within the school-based management, kung hindi naman niya expertise at linya, kaya naalala ko yung mga usapan namin nila Ma'am Mara noon at nila ni yung mga klase dati na parang napapabayaan po dahil hindi naman na-evaluate ng tama hanggang sa mamatay na lang yung kurso. Katulad po ngayon, just to share, kakaroon po ng problem ngayon yung husband ko ngayon dahil hindi naman kasi talaga expert yung principal on the field ng sports science. Ang hawak niya ay junior high. Yung implementation niya sa junior high, ginagamit niya sa senior high school, which is unique subject. Ang problema, ngayong pandemic, naka-focus siya sa junior high school, pero yung senior high school, 5 years nang nagra-run, hindi pa siya nai-evaluate at ngayon ay parang namamatay na yung kurso at gustong patayin yung kurso dahil hindi nai-evaluate ng tama ng taong nakapwesto. Kasi I believe dapat may role po talaga yung mga I believe yung master teacher po ang may role nun. Kasi siya ang nandoon sa curriculum side Pero pag tinignan po yung kanilang KRA, wala po sa trabaho nila yun to evaluate. Parang napuputol po. Siguro yan yung na minsan nami-mislook na kaya dapat talaga na merong talagang research din ng mga teachers because that will be part of the evaluation po. So, yun lang po na nakakalungkot at sa atin po as curriculum PhD in curriculum na magiging curricularist in the future kung sakasakali pong loobin ng Diyos siguro ito po talaga yung mga dapat na bigyang pansin at bigyang toon, aralin maigi kung paano matutulungan ng sistema ng edukasyon. Kaya po medyo nakakaawa ang kalagayan ng mga nasa basic education. Thank you po, ma'am. Salamat po.
Okay. So, I think naman may point naman, okay naman yung sinabi ni Ma'am Ivy. Oo. Basically, that's the problem. Yun nga sinasabi natin. Kasi yung mga EPS tama? EPS? Ang laki ng coverage sa division office ilang school. So, basically, hindi nila kakayanin yun. Actually, it's an issue of manpower. when it comes naman doon sa sinasabi ni Ma'am Collie, so tama, nagkakaroon ng gap. Kasi basically, dapat sa curriculum evaluation, ang napakahalaga ng classroom teacher na ginagampanan niya as a classroom teacher, siya yung may malaking contribution sa curriculum evaluation. Unfortunately, they are not being considered as part of the. Kasi ang gusto nila kasi, pag curriculum evaluation, to evaluate the curriculum, ang gusto nila expert. Ang gusto nila galing sa ibang bansa. Ang gusto nila may PhD. The thing is, okay, wala naman sila doon sa classroom during the implementation. And ito pa yung kinakaasar ko, sorry to say, kukuha tayo ng expert from other country, take note, from developed country. And then magsasabi, tama ba itong ginagawa namin? The question is, kung ako yung foreigner na pupunta dito as curriculum expert, in the first place, you are in the classroom teacher is in the best position to evaluate the curriculum at the micro level. Why? Because she or he is the curriculum implementer. Unfortunately, again, kasi mahilig tayo kasi sa mga title. Pag nakita ng doktor, pag nakita ng consultant, pag nakita ng foreigner, sila ang magagaling sa curriculum, which is very, very the exact opposite of what we are saying and thinking. Yun yung mga sinasabi natin na iniisip natin sila yung expert. No. Even Tyler cannot solve the problem of the Philippine education. And even a simple classroom here in the Philippines, hindi niya kaya yun. Kasi he doesn't even have the context of what is happening and what's going on to our education system and to the implementation of the curriculum. Kahit pa sinabihin mo siyang he is the father of the curriculum, wala siyang magagawa. Okay? And take note, yun nga, yung theory niya, kahit anong ganda niyan, wala ring magagawa ang theory niya. The thing is, kaya nga kayo as a PhD student, yung nag-MA, yung nagmamasters, we are encouraging you to develop a curriculum evaluation model, a curriculum implementation model. Why? Because you know the context of where you are, get this study. So, hindi naiintindihan. The problem is, again, sinasabi ni Ma'am Collis, dapat talaga may research component. Yes, I agree. But take note, ang training ng mga teacher, 4-year basic education, take note, instruction, hindi sila researcher. And even yun yung nasa university nga, hindi nga maka-research ng maayos yung pang nasa basic education. That's why I salute those students before they graduate their MA and PhD, sana may publication. Kasi that's the only ultimate measure of the curriculum evaluation of the MA and the PhD level. Kasi alam nyo kung bakit. Kung kayo ay makakapag-publish at kung kayo ay makagagawa ng papel, the very reason why you call it PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, it's the knowledge production that you can contribute. But the thing is, how can you contribute to a knowledge without publishing any, even a very simple paper, kahit pa hindi pa Scopus yan, okay lang yan, or ISI. So basically, yun yung nagiging ground natin. Iba ang identity. Teacher as researcher, magkaiba yun. Researcher as teacher, magkaiba rin yun. So kaya nga lagi kong sinasabi, these graduate students, like what I'm saying doon sa ating dialogue with the multi-grade teachers, do you think kakayanin pa ng multi-grade teachers to do research? Kaya sinasabi ko sa inyo, they must collaborate with the MA and PhD students to publish something to hear their voice from below. And those writings, those publications that they publish in cooperation, in collaboration with the higher education, MA, PhD, and the professor like me, yun yung magigisa ng evidence ng kanilang kasi basically nakita nyo naman, bawal magsalita ng kahit kasi, it's somehow the ethical consideration and the work ethics. Though, yung iba pang mga traditional, don't wash your dirty linens to the public. Yan yung mga Diyos ko Lord. So basically, sasabihin ba natin pangit ang PNU? Sasabihin ba natin ayaw magpag-graduate ni PNU sa mga masters and PhD? No, we cannot say that kasi we are part of the institution. So the same thing with the teacher. And the best avenue for them to have this evidence is to write a research. Unfortunately, their condition is very difficult. Lalo na ngayon, imagine mo sa isang klase, 60, 70. And then you're going to write the CRA and the MOB and the everything and the DLL. So, yun nga simpleng professor sa university na iba, hindi makapag-publish, hindi makagawa ng research, inala na nga lang ang handle. hindi pa makapag-mentor. So basically, very very complicated, napakahirap na problema. Kaya nga, when we talk of curriculum evaluation in a macro and a micro level, it must be a consolidated or collaborative effort of everybody, from internal to external stakeholders. So basically, why I say external stakeholders, basically, from the very start na nabuo ang Department of Education and Basic Education sa Pilipinas, nung nag-formalize ang basic education sa Pilipinas, lagi ang kulang sa budget. Since then, simula nang nauso ang pag-aaral sa Pilipinas, laging kulang ang budget until now, take note. So like for example, nung nauso ang pag-aaral sa Pilipinas noong 1901, since 1901 kulang ang budget until now. So basically, saan tayo hugot? That's the another, And then there are some cases na underman. So, kaya nga parang ang hirap i-evaluate ng curriculum. It's really almost impossible to evaluate the curriculum pag curriculum evaluation ang pinag-uusapan. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, just select a case, just select a situation, just select as something na, and then sometimes implications. Kasi it's kulang ang 10 taon para i-discuss ang curriculum evaluation. So, yun yung, kaya nga nakikita ninyo, nung nag-talk si Dr. Manzano, nakikita niya yung, imagine sa Japan, it's 100 years ang planning nila. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it should be like this. Do we have that kind of thing here in the Philippines? We only have 3 to 5 years, and pumapalpak pa tayo. So basically, we're not saying we are a weak country because our country is very young compared to others. So kailan lang ba naman ang Pilipinas, and so but basically again, we cannot compare Philippines at sasabihin natin pag ginawa natin excuse ang very young ang ating country, how about Singapore? Then it's another context. Pag tinitingnan natin ang mga sitwasyon, we are in a comparative education perspective, iba-iba kasi yung context. In a comparative education, the context is very, very important. Kung hindi mo alam yung context, you cannot even say something, and you don't even have the right to say something. Kaya lang the problem is how can we address the complexity of the education problem, not just in a single school, yung na sinasabi nating SBM, school-based management. Actually, kahit nagpipilit yung mga principles, yun nga, marami pa ring issue. Una, yung budget. So, titingnan kasi lahat yung component na yan eh. So, if evaluating ay curriculum in a micro and macro level, ang dami pa rin layers na tinitingnan. Kaya yun. So, yun, dun tayo nagkaka-problema. Actually, nagkakaroon talaga ng gap. Tama si Ms. Polly sa kanyang observation. There's really a gap in the middle. So, basically, nandito yung mga think tank natin, the best and the brightest curriculum experts. And then we have here the teachers or curriculum implementers. So, ang nangyayari, when these things move from top to bottom and from bottoms up, sobrang hirap. So, basically, yung top to bottom, medyo madali pero nagkakaroon pa rin ng lapses dun sa middle. And ito namang nasa ground, kumbaga sa ang hirap kasi may gravity. And the gravity that I'm saying are some of the issues and challenges that somehow it's really difficult to address. Yun. Okay po. Sino pa pong may gustong sabihin sa ating mga kasama dito? So sa amin katulad dito sa suggestor, dying program na ang measurement and evaluation ba yun? Parang ganon. Kasi wala nang humahawak, and then hindi na siya masyadong relevant kasi pumapasok na nga ang multi and interdisciplinary. So, yun yung mga isa rin sa mga challenges. Kaya nagiging dying. Wala kang expert, wala kang mag-i-implement. Kaya yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Collis na yun, nagiging dying siya kasi pag nawala na kasi yung humahawak, nawawala na rin kasi yung program. Yun yung it's a question of sustainability kasi how to sustain a certain program, a certain yung mga tipong ganun.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, ano ko lang po, ma'am, kasi 'di ba, ang PPST is one of the evaluation naman tool for the standard is to standardize yung mga ano natin, ano, mga teaching force. Sa palagay niyo po ba, ma'am, nakaka-apekto rin ito? Kasi yun nga, ma'am, ang nakakalungkot kanina, 'di ba? Marami po talaga hindi makapag-research ang mga teacher. Pero po, like for example, kung MT ka, MT1, MT2, head ka, expected talagang dapat nakaabot ka sa level na ikaw ay nakatapos ng iyong expertise, at kung nakatapos ka ng expertise, may MA ka, holder ka, dapat talagang marunong silang mag-research. Yun ang nakakalungkot, ma'am. Kasi nga, ang nakikita kong sitwasyon, ma'am, kasi matindi pa rin ang nepotismo. So may problema, ma'am, sa kultura na na kaya hindi tayo natin
Oo.
ma-attain. Yun po ang isa
Yes.
kong talagang
Ah.
nakakalungkot isipin.
Yes, the ultimate factor is the nepotism. Like for example, sa mga medyo malalayo ng lugar, well, in a city center, very competitive. Pag lumalayo ka kasi sa center, nagiging nawi-weaken yung competitiveness eh. Bakit? Yun nga, katulad niyan. And another thing, saan ba nila kinuha yung MA nila? So, hindi naman sa pag-ano, kaya nga sabi nga nung isang kausap ko, basta maka-PhD ka, okay na yun. Tingnan mo yung mga umalis sa PNU na MA and PhD. Nagkompleto sila ng academic requirements. And then, ayaw nilang mahirapan. Take note ha, ako mismo, ino-offeran. Ipagsulat ko ng thesis. How much? 50K. So, yung mga tipong ganun. And pag may kumakagat sa ganong trading, pero hindi dapat ganun eh, yung integrity. So, basically, yung mga fly-by-night ng mga schools. So, basically, marami niyan sa mga, kahit nga dito sa city center eh. O sige, tapos ka na, ganyan-ganyan. O, and take note, before, may mga non-thesis ang mga masters. Ngayon, hindi na po pwede. Like for example, sa PNU, bawal na. Yun yung ibang estudyante na hinihirap gumawa ng thesis. Sabi nila kung pwedeng special project. PNU dissolved special project. Wala nang provision sa ganun. Everybody must write thesis and dissertation. But the thing is, other schools, other university, they are offering non-thesis. So basically, yung non-thesis na yun, yung mga ganong, doon ka nga hahasain eh. Kaya ka nga nag-masters eh. Aside from the content, dapat marunong ka na rin sa writings and kahit hindi man lang sa grammar, okay, kasi hindi ka naman English major and somebody can do it for you and troubleshoot it for you. The thing is the way you think and the way you organize the idea, yun yung pinakamahalaga. The problem is doon nagkakaroon ng problema. Kasi nga, kaya rin may tinatawag na accreditation, naglabas na rin na si CHED ng CMO number 15 last 2019 lang, na ini-elevate nila ang standard ng grad school. So, hindi nila po pwedeng yung mga putyo-putyo kasi may mga fly-by-night. And then, yung mga fly-by-night na yan, hindi naman tinatanong ni DepEd na pag mag-a-apply ka ng master teacher, saan ka graduate eh. Basta mayroon kang ipakita sa kanilang document na nakatapos ka ng MA or ng PhD, tatanggapin ka nilang master teacher eh, pag nag-certain mga 3 years or 2 to 3 years eh. Ganun eh. Lalo na nung nangyari nung i-implement ang senior high school, kung sino na lang po pwede, dinampot na lamang, kahit walang alam sa PCK or sa kahit simpleng pedagogy man lang, engineer na bigyan ng master teacher na item na ang laki-laki ng sweldo, pero they cannot contribute any. Magaling sila pero they cannot somehow mentor and train kasi wala nga silang ganun eh. So basically, kasi nga ang tinitingnan nila ay they devalue the education, the profession. So, kahit sino pwedeng maging teacher, but the thing is, hindi ganun ang dapat ang pagtingin. Kaya nga siguro kung nagkaroon ng PPST. And yun yung nagiging challenge. So, yun.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you po.
Dati nga ang nangyari noong nasa private school pa ako, ang gusto nung may-ari ng school ay, okay, pag ang units mo ay, per unit kasi, may dagdag sa basic. Per unit mo, 25 pesos. Ang gusto niyang mangyari, pag UP ang MA mo, dapat 100. Pag PNU or UST, 75. Pag hindi kilalang school, 25. Yung mga tipo ganun, which, it's parang discriminating naman ang dating. Dilalagyan mo siya ng standard, pero sa ibang discriminating naman, bakit lahat lang ba ng nasa UP ang may magagaling? And the question is, magaling nga paano kung tamad naman? So, Marami, yun. Yung mga time na yun, hindi ako nagsasalita kasi syempre, nung nagmamasteral ako, UP grad ako, imagine mo yung aming principal, ML Quick, o yung MLQU, tapos ako, ako, madi-discourage siya, and then, yung mga tipong ganun. So, another issue, another layer of issue na nasa curriculum. Okay. Ano pa po?
Doc Arlene, permission to speak po.
Yes po.
Ayun. This is my reflection lang po kasi I was listening po dun sa nabanggit niyo po. Actually, I felt challenged po kasi I'm also from DepEd. And nakarelate po ako dun po sa nabanggit niyo na totoo po yun, ma'am. I personally po, one factor po siguro na nakaka-affect sa skills namin sa public is yung quality po ng master's education na natanggap namin. So ako po, I was a graduate from a province and even I cannot attest whether I really possess the research skills. So nakarelate po ako dun sa nabanggit. And it is, right now I'm really very challenged po to learn. That's why sabi ko po sa mga classmates ko before, that's why I moved to PNU. Kasi nga, siguro through PNU, I could be more competent kasi gusto kong gumawa ng research, pero paano? Parang yung po yung dilemma. And even sa schools po namin, most of my co-teachers, they are already doing researches. Kaya lang, the problem nga po is may research pero hindi po na-implement yung results. Yung po yung nakikita kong gap dun po sa context namin. So sa amin po, may researcher pero ang problem po is hindi po nabibigyan ng opportunity na ma-practice yung results. So doon po sa nabanggit niya, parang I was reflecting na oo nga, no, siguro what we needed is really somebody to, uh, well, to mentor us po in some of the methods. Kasi kahit ako, hindi rin po ako masyadong, kumbaga nakukulangan, something like that po. So parang my experiences can attest dun sa nangyayari sa field na nagma-masters, pero pumasok kami sa university sa province, hindi naman po sa nagde-degree. Kaya lang, yung medyo kulang ba? Kasi you are seeing your teachers na ito yung topic niya and then approve na lang ng approve agad. Hindi ko po alam kung bakit. So, na-experience ko po na pinaredef sa akin yung master's thesis ko, ma'am. Pero hindi naman po in-explain sa akin exactly bakit ako redef. So, yung mga experience po na hindi nagsisink in sa akin, na I think may impact din po dun sa way I perceive my teaching practice po. So right now, dun sa narinig ko po, parang I really am challenged na siguro na there is really a gap po that I have to address as a public school teacher po. Yung totoo po yung mga na-mention niyo po, ma'am.
Ganun nga ang nagiging challenge. Okay. Sige po, sino pa po? Okay na po ba? Kasi, so, hanggang dito na lang po. So, basically, yun, next meeting, we will start a new theme. So, tingnan natin yung mga aanin pa natin, mga theme and how we can somehow relate it to curriculum evaluation. So, basically, tingnan nyo, unang sharing nyo pa lang, 3 pa lang yung nag-present. Nakikita ninyo yung complexity ng curriculum evaluation. Hindi siya ganun kadali. And there's no single cyclical steps on how to evaluate the curriculum. Hindi siya stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Hindi siya ito. Wala po. So, very complex ng tinitingnan natin pagdating sa curriculum evaluation. That's why, ang sabi ko sa inyo, get just a portion of it and then focus on that. Kasi mabubuwang kayo kung aaralin ninyo. Take note ha, Pilipinas pala ang pinag-uusapan natin. And take note, SBM, okay? Sa school-based management pala ng curriculum evaluation, ang dami na, di ba? Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, it's really difficult to somehow give a very concrete prescription and discussion on how to evaluate a curriculum, what are the necessary things. Ang tatanungin ko kasi sa inyo, ano ba kasi ang titingnan ninyo? Anong gusto niyong tingnan pagdating sa curriculum evaluation? Sa area pa lang, kung bibigyan ko kayo ng idea, sa 10 areas, doon sa pag-i-evaluate, doon sa area, I think it's area 3 doon sa amin sa accreditation sa ACOP, meron doon curriculum. Pero yung curriculum na yun, yung tinuturo. But the thing is, yung sinasabi ni ma'am sa macro level, lahat yun, covered siya. So, ultimong yung walang kinalamang karpentero at janitor sa inyong school, that's part of the curriculum. Merong isang thesis, pero tumigil na siya ngayon Dapat kukunin ko siyang advice, maganda siya. Ano yung contribution ng mga maintenance? Ang tawag niya doon ay, mayroong part Sa SBM kasi wala talaga. Pero basically, hindi niyo ba alam kung ano ang role na kayo, tanungin ko kayo, soon to be curriculum expert, ano ang role ng janitor sa inyong school? Ano ang intention sa janitor? Sige daw. So, as curriculum expert, hindi nyo naiisip na, dapat pala kasali si janitor. Diba? Yun yung mga detalye na, kung if you want to evaluate a curriculum, isasama mo ba si janitor? Of course. Kasi part siya ng ng system ng school O, di ba? Pero si janitor, wala siyang katulad natin as teacher. Hindi siya regular na mayroong kumbaga sa public. Wala yang item. Yung tinatawag nating mga maintenance. Si security guard at si janitor, hindi nyo ba sasama sa curriculum evaluation? Kung kayo ang tatanungin ko, future curriculum expert.
Kasama po.
Okay.
Social service, ano yun ba, student service?
Di ba? So, yung iba, nanineglect nila yung mga janitor pala dapat kasama din. Yung mga security guard dapat kasama din. Pero sa basic education, wala sa teacher yun. Ang gumagawa na lang ang kumukuha ng janitor at security guard ay si PTA, yung Parents Association. Sila minsan ang nagpapasweldo kasi walang pera. Kung minsan kumukuha sa MOOE, pero pag hindi ka siya si MOOE, mag-aambagan na lang yung mga officers ng PTA para pasweldohin si janitor na tagalinis. Imagine mo, may kinder ka, tapos si grade 1, tumain na, si teacher pa rin. Pero dating sinong kukuha ng tubig, sinong magaganyan, iiwanan niya ba? Wala naman tayong teacher aid malamang. So basically, kahit na grade nagdudumi pa, nagpupupa pag mga aksidente, di ba? So basically, ano ang role ni janitor, ni maintenance, ni guard? Never siyang na-capture sa SBM, nakasali dapat sila. Actually, yun yung pinag-uusapan namin. Sabi ko, take a look and visit the SBM from the Department of Education and see. Nung makita niya, ma'am, wala po. So, yan ang thesis mo. Yun yung binigay ko sa kanya. Kasi alam mo, siya ay teacher. At ang tatay niya ay janitor. So sabi ko, ngayon tingnan mo. Pero hindi pa na siya nagpaparamdam Medyo yun nga, ang problema sa kanya, yung skills din niya sa pagsusulat. So basically, teacher siya by profession, pero hindi siya researcher. So yun yung nagiging na dapat na capacity sa mga teachers. Pero sa dami daw ng clerical work hindi nila ma-practice at hindi nila mapagtuunan ng na i-enhance yung skills nila as researcher. Hindi nyo nagiging challenge. Kasi ikaw na ang DSWD, ikaw na ang DOH, ikaw na ang PNP, ikaw na ang lahat ng sa isang school, sa isang klase. So, yun din naman kasi nga kulang tayo sa staff. Actually, ang pinakang backbone na kumbaga yung upper extremities of the skeletal system, the faculty, and the lower extremities of the skeletal system ay yung mga staff. The problem is, pag nawawala kasi yung mga staff, meron kang upper extremities, nawawala yung lower extremities mo. So, hindi rin nakakatayo ng maayos. Okay? So, yun yung nagiging problema ng education natin. Kaya pagdating sa curriculum evaluation, very frustrating ang nagiging scenario and ang nagiging result ng curriculum evaluation. Kaya yun. Kaya mahirap, in a single word, yes, curriculum evaluation. So let's see ang best practices. But the thing is, paano nila na-reach yung best practices, yung community of practice. The thing is, it's a collaborative effort. So, yun lang yung masasabi ko. There's no even a single word or action that could somehow define what is curriculum evaluation in our course. Kaya hindi ko siya pinapaangahasan talaga. Though there are several books on you can read and will teach you what is curriculum evaluation. But in reality, kasi expectation versus reality, theory versus practice, mahirap siyang ipaliwanag. Kaya hindi ko siya pinapangahasan. Though, yun nga, at least somehow, nakikita naman natin na eto yun. Naiintindihan natin yung mga challenges, issues, factors that we need to consider and the complexity of the education system and the curriculum itself. Yun yun. Okay po. So, with that, yun. Thank you so much, Ma'am Collis, Ma'am Garcia, and Sir Fami. Sa initial discussion natin, tingnan na na palang overwhelming na agad ang curriculum evaluation natin. Yun yung mahirap na intindihin. Pero as we go along, we need not to somehow, hindi natin kinakailangang malaman lahat. Ang kailangan natin ay maintindihan ang mga bagay-bagay and how complicated it is. Parang ganon. Pag sinabi kong curriculum evaluation, you need not to know everything under curriculum evaluation, but you need to understand why these things is happening when it comes to curriculum evaluation. Yung mga ganun. Okay po. So, next meeting ay tayo po ay pupunta na sa mga theme natin.
Ma'am, tanong ko lang po, saan po
Yes po.
ipapasa yung PowerPoint, ma'am? Saan po pwede i-send?
Yung PowerPoint ay sa ano pa, ma'am? Sa ano? Pwede siyang i-send sa ano, sa EPNU or doon sa email na rin.
Okay po,
Kung
ma'am.
kaya sa EPNU. Kasi yung PowerPoint niyo kasi, di ba, actually, yung nung isa, doon sa isang subject ko, yung pang Friday na subject ko, may ina-upload ako. Yung PowerPoint lang, single page lang, yung may picture ni Ma'am Pat, kasi nag-ano rin kami, nag-dialogue with the expert. Diyos ko, ayaw niya mag-upload. Okay, to find out, nakita ko, ay pumapalo pala siya ng hindi ko siya ma-upload. So, yun. So, kung yung PowerPoint niyo is maraming kuminsan na na mga kinakabit na mga something pictures or infographics, at nag-more than 10 MB, hindi talaga na siya papasok. So, pag less than, kaya pa naman. So, you can, dalawa ang pasukan ninyo, email, sa email ko at saka sa EPNU.
Okay
Kaya
po, ma'am. Thank you po.
sa inyo, the simple, that PowerPoint presentation, okay lang yan. Hindi ko kailangan ng mga infographics na sobrang complicated. Yung simple, as simple as is basta maipakita nyo lang at ma-highlight nyo lang yung mga dapat yung ma-highlight, ha?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you po.
Okay, so with that, good night. Salamat sa inyong pakikilahok. And I hope you learned something from us, the three of us, and yung mga sharing. Thank you. So, see you next week.
Ma'am, anong gagawin po next week?
Next week, mag-open tayo ng panibagong theme. And then, mayroon pa tayong mga konting discussion. Pero very short lang, baka mag-run lang tayo ng 30 minutes kasi overtime na tayo ngayon eh. And then, yung week 6, meron ulit tayong speaker. May expert ulit tayo and then presentation ulit the following week on week 7. Okay?
So may report tayo, ma'am, sa next meeting.
Po?
May report po tayo next meeting.
Wala po. Wala po. Wala, ma'am.
Okay. Kasi next
Ano
group
lang yun,
po.
opo. Oo, briefings lang po. Ang stage time po natin is week 4, 7, and 10. Opo.
Okay.
So yung ating week 2, 5, and 8, relax yun. And then meeting with the expert yung ating mid. Okay po?
Okay po.
Para
Thank
naman
you.
po makapokus kayo sa requirements. Okay, sige po. Bye-bye po.
Thank
Salamat.
you, bye. God bless.
Ingat po.
Bye.
Po.
Thank you po. Bye po.
Bye.
Ito po.
Thank you po, Doc.